Welcome back to Naja News. As promised, I have some updates on the Romeca Meeks case, the 31-year-old mother that was slain in Chicago just a few days ago. At this point, this case is presenting more questions than answers. What exactly went down that day that Romeca was gunned down? How did the altercation start? And why on earth did Holly get out of that car and shoot her? After the initial report, Steph and I were contacted by a source that would like to remain anonymous, that had personal relationships with both Carlos and Romeca, and they shared some insight on the volatility of their relationship, where Holly comes into play, and how things went down. So once we established that this person is who they say they are, we went on to have about a 45-minute conversation with them, and they laid out the entirety of Romeca and Carlos's relationship. And the one consistent that I found online is that their relationship was full of fireworks. Steph and I are about to go through all of the details of the conversation, but here's some quick bullet points. Carlos and Romeca had a volatile on and off relationship that started in 2017. Their baby was born in 2018. Carlos and Holly met sometime around 2023. And up until then, Romeca and Carlos had a really good co-parenting relationship. She even praised him online. Holly is described as detached and quiet, but Romeca was really attached to Carlos's family. And even though everybody knew that their relationship could be described as toxic, they appreciated her for the wonderful and kind mother that she was. It was previously reported that Romeca had a restraining order against Carlos. That's been proven to be false. However, there is still an outstanding domestic violence case that Carlos has to be seen for in October. The shooting did not happen in front of the school as previously reported. Carlos lives close to the school, and the shooting happened about a block away from the school. From the time Holly was introduced into the picture, she and Romeca had a war. But the day that Holly shot Romeca was the first time they'd ever had an up-close interaction. So let's welcome in Steph Watts, investigative journalist, and hash out some of these details from the conversation that we had with the contact. I just want to say something. The other day, Steph mentioned that he does have inside sources, inside resources, and a lot of y'all doubted him. I told you this before, and I'm going to always stand by this. We might not be first with getting you the news, but we're always going to be accurate. Steph mentioned that his source told him that the shooter, Holly Johnson, and we're still not sure if that's her actual name. We're going to get into that here in a second, though. Told you that the shooter had been released from jail. And we saw the comments, and we wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence once again. But as you can see, it has been reported, despite what the shooter's auntie and family members are going online saying, she has been released at this point without charges. Steph, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Naja. Thanks for having me back. This is I don't know, the story resonates with me for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, having the call from the individual who was related to the case, but it was a really heartwarming conversation. You know, in the day and age that we're in, generally in our country, there's just so much tension that we have to do our best to avoid confrontation. Nobody needed to get out of their car that day. And if either individual party had stayed in their car or left the situation, uh, Romeca would be here with us today. So that's what I think.
I think that's a good place to start at, Steph,
Yeah.
because we did have, like I said, Steph and I were both on the phone call. We were both contacted. We didn't contact the individual, and they want to remain anonymous for obvious reasons, because at this point, there have been death threats and almost acts of violence against Carlos, the man in the middle of all of this, against his family. I'm assuming against him. And probably Holly's family. So this person wants to remain anonymous. We cannot tell you how they know both Romeca and Carlos, but they have shown us pictures, videos of all of them attending family events together. They've shown us screenshots of them communicating with both of them. So this person is almost an unbiased party in this. So Steph, you mentioned getting out of the car. Out of that 45-minute conversation that we had with our contact, for the life of me, I still could not understand why Holly, the shooter, would get out of the car. Now, we do know this. So here is how the incident went down. Carlos and Holly had been in Chicago since Friday, so she did not drive over from Milwaukee. She had already been there. They went to the school not to drop the son off, because we know Romeca had dropped her son off at the school. They were going there because apparently Carlos has other family members, nieces and nephews that also attend the school. They come from a very tight-knit family is what we're told. Again, all of this is from what we are told by a party that is proven to us that they actually know and had good relationship with both parties. Carlos and Holly were driving to the school to drop other children off. Romeca saw them, and this is what I have not seen reported anywhere. Romeca saw them, did a U-turn, burnt rubber, did a U-turn, saw them, and she proceeded to follow them. Now, some sort of way a car ended up, and you can look at the way the cars are aligned. Carlos had the black sedan, I believe. Romeca was in another vehicle, lighter colored vehicle. She did the U-turn, swerved, almost cut them off. And yes, Holly did have a restraining order against Romeca. No, Romeca did not have a restraining order against Carlos. They do have an active domestic violence case that Carlos has to go to court for on October 8th. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But Steph, okay, speak to some more of the details of what happened when Romeca did the U-turn, some sort of way an altercation happens. Like, so speak to that.
From what I understand, they knew what time she dropped off her son. Romeca dropped off her son. Okay. They would know that she would drop him off and leave, and then they would leave the house because it was very close proximity to school and get on with their day. They were attempting to avoid her. Now you have to remember, in a restraining order situation, okay, the onus of the responsibility of no contact is on the person who the restraining order is against. So if I have a restraining order against you, you see me, it's your responsibility to avoid me. In this case, it was Romeca's responsibility to avoid them. She had a restraining order against the girlfriend. So, my takeaway from this is, in that instant, in that situation, Romeca was in the wrong. She should have left, and I just want people to realize, like, we've got to avoid confrontation. Again, it was an escalation. Then she got out of her car. Then they got out of the car, and nobody, in their minds are thinking someone's going to end up dead in this situation. But Holly was, had her CCL and had a gun. So, I play it over and over in my head, and I've seen this a million times. And, you and I talked, and one thing I think that's really important is, I'd seen we saw some videos of Romeca that weren't flattering, and she was incredibly angry, and we've all been angry, and I understand that, and we're not going to show those videos. My concern is, and I would always ask people, if you're at that point where you're really conflicted, they need help from people like you. Like I felt like Romeca didn't have the help, or people weren't understanding how deep in trouble she was by this. And I completely understand it. She was heartbroken. She was angry. Carlos was going back and forth between both of these women, but this is not the answer. And, I play this over and over in my head, and she ended up dead in an incredibly violent way, outside the school, close to the home of where Carlos was. And
okay, let's clear that up also, because, and without giving his address, he lives on the 2100 block and the school is on the 2200 block. The incident happened at his house. His house is so close to the school that he can see the school from his window. And I might have mixed up the 22 and 21 if the school might be at 22, but he lives very close. So the incident was not at the school. So Holly probably won't be charged with any sort of incident happening on a school ground because it was not at the school. It was down the block. Also, I want to kind of double back, Steph, because me and you disagreed about this off camera. We were told that Romeca saw Carlos driving in this direction. She saw his car, did a U-turn, and then she tailed them. But you're saying they waited until she was gone, which could still be the same case, but we do know that she pursued them and came after them. And from what we are told from the source, the resource that we have, our contact, is that she instigated the act of violence. She instigated the act of violence.
Well, again, I want to remind people that she had a restraining order against her, and however upsetting that is, the burden of responsibility of avoiding contact is on the individual who the restraining order is against. Okay, so Holly had the restraining order against Romeca from, I guess, past situations, whatever, we don't know. But I watched the press conference yesterday, as did you, with the mom, and it was so heartbreaking. I'm glad to know that her son is with the grandmother. I understand that Holly's son is with her mother because she's not allowed to have him, that child, until all of this gets sorted out. So at least we know that the children are safe. Our source told us that, and obviously Carlos is incredibly heartbroken, really upset about this. Why wouldn't he be, a person that he cared about, regardless of the dynamics? She was the mother of his child, is gone in a
Right.
horrifically violent way.
So at the time of the incident, Romeca pursued, according to allegedly, she pursued, banged on the car. Carlos gets out of the car, and I don't know why. I don't know why Carlos and Holly didn't just keep driving or keep going to where they had to go, or actually even run away from her. But so she's banging on the car. She's trying to get to Holly. She's trying with all her might. She's trying to get to Holly. Holly is sitting in the car in the front seat. Carlos's and Holly's baby is sitting in the back seat. Carlos gets out of the car, tries to get her from getting over to Holly. At this point, it's said, the words are, Holly goes into mama bear mode. She's like, oh my God, my baby's in the car. This was the first time Romeca and Holly ever laid eyes on one another in the flesh.
Yeah,
they never had an interaction before
Right.
in life. This was the very first day. Now, they had fought online back and forth, and we've all seen some of the petty posts that they both made. They fought online back and forth. I kind of want to go over some of the facts that we do know and that are provable, Steph. So we did see a few police reports of property damage that was caused. And, obviously, the contact tried to be as unbiased as possible, but we do have reports of property damage that was caused by Romeca. So we know Carlos and Romeca had a very volatile relationship. Romeca shared screenshots of Carlos allegedly coming to deface her property, destroying her home, and saying, what can I do to get him to leave me alone? Carlos is going to court on October 8th for a previous domestic violence charge. And to this date, that is the only domestic violence incident that he has with anybody on his record.
Correct.
It is Romeca that he only has any sort of domestic violent incident with Romeca. So they are in court for that. DCFS turned the child over, little Carlos, to Romeca's mother. At this point, they're refusing to give him back to his father, obvious reasons, but they don't have an obligation to until this October 8th court date. Then it'll be determined who gets the custodial rights to little Carlos. But I'm told that Romeca's family is going to fight to keep him in their custody.
Yeah, I think I want to just back up to something you said, which I think is really interesting that people need to know. This was the first physical alteration between these two women. Right. Look how it ended. And you said, Holly went into mama bear mode. If Holly was really in mama bear mode, she should have never gotten out of the car. There was no reason for them to get out of the car. And look, I'm Monday morning quarterback. Yeah. I'm not beating up, Carlos. I wasn't there. I wasn't in this situation. Right. But, again, we need to learn from this and understand when there's children involved. And, and again, the fact that situation was so volatile, like you and I have been friends for years. If I see you in a situation like that, I'm going to sit with you and say, Naja, look, I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned.
What's going on?
This situation. Yeah. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I really want people to look. We can't turn back the hands of time.
So let's look at it. When did it get volatile? Because I'm showing here a screenshot from not too long ago. So it doesn't appear that until Holly came into the picture, until Carlos and Holly started the relationship together. Romeca actually used to praise Carlos as a father. She said they had a good co-parenting relationship. Here we can see Romeca praising Carlos. In May 2023, someone posted, if you could do it all over again and start from scratch, would you make a baby with the same baby daddy? And Romeca says, honestly, yes, because despite how our relationship turned out, he's an amazing father, like a real good dude. He gets his son, takes care of him, teaches him. They're best friends, and I wouldn't replace that bond for nothing. My son has an amazing father, and I'm so thankful and grateful. And just a month before that, Romeca responded to a post that says, girls, do you care if your boyfriend's mother likes you? Romeca says, yes, it's mandatory. Honestly, the older I get, the more I realize that I'm so big on family. Me and my child's father are not together, but baby, his family is mine and vice versa. His family does not play about me or my son. And I love that family. And I love that my family doesn't play about him, whether we're together or not. No one saw things coming to this end. Romeca and Carlos started their relationship 2017. I believe their baby was born 2018. And then Holly comes into the picture later. I did have to ask, was he dealing with both women? Because why so angry? What's the volatility from? And the source, the contact says, maybe as little as 3 weeks ago, Carlos was still kind of going back and forth with Romeca, and then he would go over to Holly. But Steph, I understand why you're stressing before things go here. Like the work that I do in real life, the company that I've started is literally for people. This is why I do these stories. Is for people in high conflict, blended families. Because just because you're co-parents now and you broke up and the love is gone, we still have the responsibility of raising a kid together. Now we have two little kids where one mother killed the other mother. Is dad going to have custody of both of his children? Is dad going to get back with Holly? Like, we simply don't know. So here's what we know about Holly directly from our contact. Holly's personality, because she's been pretty quiet. Romeca's family is very vocal. We saw the beautiful balloon release in her memory. The funeral services are coming up. But Holly is said to be quite a quiet person. I did ask, is Holly her real name? And the video that I have of an altercation between Romeca and Carlos, she is calling Holly's name. So the lady is known as Holly. I don't know her legal name at this point. Holly it's confirmed that she was on a hold for less than 72 hours, and she was released without charges. Currently, it still stands she is not being charged. So that's what we know about Holly. Holly's child, as Steph said, is also with the mother. And we don't know when the father will get either of the children back. So the altercation, Steph, let's go to when she got out of the car. Let's just say our contact in this event, in their alleged way that it went down, let's just say they're 100% right. Let's just say they're right. And our contact got this story from Carlos, who we are actively trying to get here to come and sit and talk to us, because I think it's only fair that we can hear as many sides of this as we can. So Steph, we're still kind of baffled on why get out of the car and what happened. So according to our context, Steph, walk through what happened when everybody was outside of that vehicle that day. And keep in mind, the infant was in the back seat of the car as all of this is going on.
Well, the individual that we spoke with mentioned, which I was a little bit surprised at, that the gun was already on top of the car. So that shows me that there was preparation for an altercation. So, an altercation at 9 o'clock in the morning that ends with one of the individuals dead, and I think that there was a sense of dominance by Holly, because she has a restraining order. She's with the man, right, the guy that they're arguing over, and she has a gun. That the situation with Holly having sort of the upper hand would have certainly enraged Romeca. But, we have to look at personal responsibility. I've talked about this a million times, and even in our own lives that we talk, outside of the business, responsibilities of our actions. And unfortunately, I think one of the reasons why I want to keep talking about this is we see all these confrontations online. And guys, I mean, we can't go back and change this. And now you've got to look at a broken family where you have the father of the two children. His new girlfriend has murdered the other former girlfriend, or and if he thinks that that's going to be one happy family, there's a risk for him having no access to both children. You know what I mean? It's like, and how does a child grow up with a woman, and he learns that this woman killed my mother? Like, it's just, these are all things that, were Monday morning quarterback that nobody really thought about before. Did Romeca think, like, if I get out of this car, I'm going to get shot? Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't think she was aware that Holly had a gun. Right?
You're not thinking when you're enraged, hey, this person has a restraining order against me, but I'm going to pursue them. I'm enraged. I'm angry. I'm hurt. We don't know what we still don't know exactly what he's telling both of these women. We don't know if they were texting back and forth. We do know that they had a violent relationship that went both ways. We know they actively fought each other. He is not a saint. He's simply not a saint. I don't know if he's a domestic abuser. We'll have to see what the court says on the 8th. So,
and I think one of the interesting things was I remember that in the conversation was the individual spoke of how different Holly was, how Romeca was very outgoing, very public, but she also was hot-headed. And we've all been in relationships like that with certain individuals. We just it's fire and ice, right? So here he had chosen a different type of woman, which I completely understand. Wanted to have a calmer, quieter life. Okay, great. Then why are you still communicating with this other one? Why are you, still?
Also said that Romeca was the life of the party and she was the homegirl to everybody. She was fun loving, would give you her last. She had a big personality. That's my understanding.
Right.
Of someone that had experienced her. And I watched
Mhm.
her balloon release celebration, and everybody had such beautiful things to say about her big, gregarious, over the top, happy spirit. And we can tell from even her social media, this girl had a heck of a personality. But Holly, the family members don't know Holly's real name. Carlos's family said they don't really even know her true identity, her age. Because I asked, I was like, hey, does anybody in his family know? No one has a connection to her. Carlos's family was connected to Romeca. A lot of them were friends with her even. They
Mhm.
hated that they fought. Both Romeca and Carlos's family used to vie for them to just like y'all can separate because it's getting too crazy.
Mhm.
It's getting to be too much. We love you guys, but maybe you're not the best together.
Mhm.
So yeah, Steph, you're right. He chose somebody that might have had a calmer, he
Mhm.
thought had a calmer temperament.
It just felt like there was, and you'll understand this because this is what you do. There was no mediation in the co-parenting between, Ramika and Carlos, and this is where it ended. And I think that's what, why we're talking about this. We need to look at this. Decisions that we make are everlasting. And this is a perfect
Yeah,
example of that. Here we are, right, with
here we are.
a young boy without his mother. Her mother broke my heart when I watched the press conference. She wants justice, which clearly means there's more division in this family. I
Yeah.
think the mother appeared to be incredibly upset at the news that she wasn't charged. And now we're getting discrepancies in the stories. She had told investigating officers who took the case to the state attorney's office that she was 15 feet away. From the sources that we spoke to, that's not the case. So, but they'll be able to figure that out with forensics and.
Since this was proven to be just a simple self defense case, do they still do, and you know more about the crime side of it, Steph, do they still do ballistics and fingerprint and analyze the crime scene?
I
How does
think,
that?
yeah, I think it. Look, Chicago, is over. They're overwhelmed with crime right now. So, it's hard to say. I can get you an update on that, but the self defense is there's a range to self defense. In this case, why they were able to say it was in self defense was simply because Holly had a restraining order against Romeca, and Romeca uh, instigated the confrontation. I'm not saying that she's should responsible for what happened to her, but those circumstances can.
According to our contact, she
Right,
allegedly
right,
pursued them. So, so let's if we're just going to paint the picture of how what we know from the incident, and this is directly from someone that was there actually at the incident. Once an altercation happened, she's trying to, Romeca's trying to get at Holly, open the car door. Carlos is like bear hugging her, fighting her. And remember, these two already had a volatile relationship. They already used to fight each other. So, this was physical confrontation was nothing. This was the norm for them and their dynamic. So he's trying to get her away for some unknown reason. Neither one of us are still clear on how he gets out of the car. Maybe she wanted to rescue her man. Also, these women have been having words back and forth since 2020, through end of 2023, top of 2024. They've been at war online. So we don't know what type of threats Romeca has made against her. We don't know what type of threats Holly has made against her. Clearly, Holly's day in court bested Romeca's because Holly was the one that won the restraining order, the order of protection.
right.
So from the understanding, Holly said, she gets out of the car and says, "Get back, I have a gun." Romeca still pursue, "I don't care," whatever words were said. Um, we don't have a video recording of that, so I can't say directly what was said. But we know that Romeca said, basically, "I don't care that you have a gun," and is still in pursuit trying to get to Holly. One thing we learn in carry and conceal class is if you have to shoot, you don't shoot at the head, you aim below the neck. You aim below the neck. So the first shot that was fired was in her thigh, somewhere in her lower region. We know it wasn't abdomen. We know it was somewhere in the leg thigh area.
Mhm.
Apparently, Romeca is still in pursuit. How she was able to still be in pursuit and had a wound in her thigh, I don't know. But allegedly, there was 3 more shots fired right after that. Boom, boom, boom. And we know that two or three of those were the kill shots. So, it's like if it's self-defense, and if anybody's ever had to fire a weapon, depending on the type of weapon you have, I'm not clear on the type of weapon, Steph, but it's really fast.
It was a handgun.
It was okay. So it was a
the type.
Yeah.
I remember the season, it was a handgun.
I want to talk about some theories though, and we're kind of getting off the facts here, but I do want to talk about some theories on because the family wants justice, and I've looked at some of the family's Facebook pages. Their social media is open. Romeca's family rightfully is hurt, upset. They are filled with rage and grief. But what I'm seeing is now there have been attacks on Carlos's family. People are going up to Carlos's family members and saying, "Are you Carlos's family?" And if you are, you know what's up. Romeca's family has said that they are going to get justice, street justice on their own. So we could possibly go, and this is a theory. I know I'm getting into theories. I do it, Steph. Perhaps Chicago or somebody over there is saying, okay, we got one dead. Let's let the rest of them go and do the work themselves. And then we could have a string of deaths that's happening because we've seen it happen in the Chicago drill scene, for example. You got one and it's like a domino effect.
Like saying that you're seeking street justice is, you're putting fuel on a fire, right? That's not the way to handle this. And I've dealt with victims' families for 25 years, and they're like, "I want justice." So what does that mean? What does that look like for you? What do you mean by that? What is justice for you? Is justice you want to see her charged with a crime? It may not happen. Is justice you want custody of the children? But saying you want street justice to me is we have
street justice means you took my loved one. Now I'm gonna retaliate. That's what I think of when, and none of us can say unless you've been in this situation. And Steph, you've worked with victims and the families of crimes. Have you ever seen it get to the point where one of the families were like, the law isn't doing enough, I'm going to take this into my own hands?
100%. I mean, I've seen witnesses be taken out before trials, at cases. I've seen, you name it. I've seen it. Yeah. People have been threatened to not testify. Yes, absolutely. Retaliatory crimes are a big problem. I think it's really important for everybody right now to take a step back and get the help that they need. Let the police do their work. Just because she hasn't been,
the police aren't doing. Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were going somewhere. Go ahead.
Just because she hasn't been charged doesn't mean she won't get charged if more evidence comes forward. It was the perfect storm of a terrible situation. She shouldn't have pulled a gun. Nobody should have gotten out of the car. Carlos should have been able to defuse that situation. Why? I could see maybe Carlos getting out of the car to deal with to deal with the mom, Romeca, but why would Holly get out of the car? Like your child is in there. The safest place is that car, and if she, if you're slamming into me, call the police, call 911. I guess that's easy to say Monday morning quarterbacking.
Right.
But this is not the answer. Taking somebody's life in a situation like this, which is, as you know, because that's what you do, is a manageable situation. They could have gotten to the place where, they are all co-parenting in a piece.
This was a manageable situation. And if they could not have co-parented, they could have parallel parented. That means we don't even have to cross paths. We don't have to co-anything. You could have lived your life over here and I could have lived mine over here. But you know what was not rectified and solidified yet? Perhaps Carlos was going back. And I want Carlos to come and sit down and just kind of clarify what his relationship was with both women.
We know that was the case. We heard that from the source that we talked to, that was close with both family members, that he was still dealing with both women, whatever that means.
In a romantic sense.
Romantic situation. So he was back and forth. And again, as men, we have a responsibility. You have children involved. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're still feeling with this other, it's just like that kind of behavior. I think this is an opportunity, this case, for us to talk about that. Like, guys, come on. We have responsibilities as men. We have children. We need to raise those children. Now that child is going to know what happened when he grows. Both children are going to know about the situation. And like I see happy co-parenting families. So do you. It's just
No, and we know it's possible to form a cohesive unit, but one thing you said is if you're crossing over, men do have a responsibility. And if you are opening one woman's heart, and you're leaving her heart open and not helping her to close that, and you've opened another woman's heart, you don't expect anybody to die. You don't expect these women to annihilate one another. For some men, it's all fun and games until something like this happens. But he's still not criminally liable for being a slime ball or irresponsible with himself or whatever you want to call him out there in internet land. He's not criminally responsible for that. Now, if he wound Holly up and if he was like, we're going to attack him, if he find evidence of that, that is different. But I can't really speculate on that until I hear from Carlos himself.
From the story that we were told, that Carlos and Holly were doing everything within their power to avoid interacting with her. They were waiting. They knew what time she would drop the child off. They thought they were in the clear, and they went. Unfortunately, that was not the case on this particular day for whatever reason. Maybe that Romeca waited to see them come, which was a terrible, terrible choice. I always tell people, on murder cases are always a series of terrible, terrible decisions that people make. Every single case.
It's like a series of unfortunate events, just boom,
Right.
boom, boom. But thank you so much, Steph Watts, investigative journalist, for joining us. And please follow Steph everywhere on social media. He will be tagged below. He is our true crime OG. He'll be joining us for cases like this.
I appreciate that. And before we go, my heart goes out to Carlos, Romeca's family, everybody involved in this case. I want them to thank us for reaching out to us, and that we're going to continue to talk about this because we can't change what happened, but we can certainly influence people to make better decisions in the future. So thank them for allowing us to talk about this case, and hopefully, open up people's minds. And when they're in that moment, they can be like, wait, I got to make a better decision.
Nobody had to die that day, and in the future, like let this woman's life not be in vain. Nobody had to die. Yeah. Everybody could have gone home and gotten in their beds and hugged their babies that night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Steph Watts, True Crime OG.
Hundreds of pink, white, and silver balloons sit outside of Inglewood STEM High School. Her mother said she was a kind, loving, and sweet mother. Now she's left with raising her grandson.
I need y'all to pray for my baby. Yeah, we will. We got him. He's sitting. He has sat down. He don't want to be around nobody.
Chicago police say the person taken into custody after the fatal shooting has been released without charges. Her family is eagerly seeking justice. Romeca, also known as Big Meeks, was soon released among thousands of other balloons.